House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Good afternoon. Today I will read again from the fable Old Turtle by Douglas Wood and Chang Ki-chi. The fable begins where all the beings of the world could speak and understand each other, and they were arguing with each other about God. And the argument grew louder and louder until Old Turtle said, "Stop." Then Old Turtle told them that soon there will be a new family of beings in the world, and they will be strange and wonderful, and they will be reminders of all that God is. They will come in many colors and shapes, with different faces and different ways of speaking, and their thoughts will soar to the stars, but their feet will walk the earth. They will possess many powers. They will be strong, yet tender, a message of love from God to the earth, and a prayer from the earth back to God. And the people came, but the people forgot. They forgot that they were a message of love and a prayer from the earth. And they began to argue. And often the people misused their powers and hurt one another. And they hurt the earth and the rivers and the oceans and the plants and the animals. Because the people could not remember who they were or where God was. Until one day a voice said, "Please stop." The voice seemed to come from the mountain who rumbled. "Sometimes I see God swimming in the dark blue depths of the sea." And from the ocean who sighed, "He is often among the snow-capped peaks reflecting the sun." From the stone who said, "I sometimes feel her breath as she blows by." And from the breeze who whispered, "I feel his still presence as I dance among the rocks." And the star declared, "God is very close." And the island added, "His love touches everything." And after a long, lonesome, and scary time, the people listened and began to hear and to see God in one another and in the beauty of all the earth. And Old Turtle smiled, and so did God.
Members, our guest chaplain for today is our very own Representative Mary Murphy from District 6B in Hermantown. If you would please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. Clerk will read the journal for the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 87th Session, 2012, 116th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Monday, May 7, 2012.
If there are no objections, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will stand as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Hearing no objections, the journal stands as corrected by the Chief Clerk. Introduction and first reading of House File. The following House File has been offered for introduction today. Chief Clerk, report this House File and give it its first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House File 3048.
First reading, House File 3048. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. This is the House motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House File, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, which amendment concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 1752, an act relating to capital improvements. House moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 1752 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
Recognize the author, the member from Cass, Representative Howes, who will explain the Senate amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate changed the bill slightly. With the monetary changes, they moved from the Greater Minnesota Economic Development Fund through deed $500,000 to a flood wall extension in South St. Paul and $2 million to the Harriet Tubman Center in Maplewood. Another change they made was language change, where they had a Thomasoni amendment similar to Representative Rukavina's amendment dealing with solar energy, but it changes it from a must to a may. And then on some technical language dealing with bonds, I'm going to yield to Representative Downey because I think he can explain it a whole lot better than I can.
Call the member from Hennepin, Representative Downey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, there was language in the bonding bill. It is actually language that is contained also in the stadium bill that passed out of here last night that gives the Department of Management and Budget the proper language in statute governing the validation and possible complaints on appropriation bonds. If you remember, we passed language for appropriation bonds in the pay for performance provisions last year. There were also tobacco appropriation bonds. There are the appropriation bonds in the Viking bill, and there are also appropriation bonds in this bill for housing. And so this is very technical language that just governs the process between the Department of Management and Budget and the courts and the processes by which those appropriation bonds will be validated and if complaints were to be brought against them. This language already exists in statute for revenue bonds and GO bonds. It needs to be in here for these appropriation bonds. And there were two provisions that Management and Budget had no problem waiving that had to do with who bore the costs of complaints and what the rights of Supreme Court justices would have in bringing complaints, and all of that was worked out between Senator Limmer, myself, and the Department of Management and Budget and Commissioner Showalter yesterday. So sorry for that long explanation, but just so people know, this is just very technical language governing those appropriation bonds, and everything, I think, is according to Hoyle. Thank you, Representative Howes.
Member from Cass, Representative Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, on your desk, you got a copy of the changes and the amendments. And if you go to page 2 of that, there are two sections in the solar panel amendment, sections D and E, that are not needed, and we will make that correction in the technical bill. And I've spoke to Representative Hausman. If she would confirm that we've agreed to that, then I would ask that we concur.
Discussion. The member from Ramsey, Representative Hausman.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Howes, and to the members of the body, I support the motion to concur and also the acknowledgement that we'll have a technical correction.
Member from from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. On behalf of the South St. Paul delegation, the flood wall is in Representative Creasel's district. Representative Atkins and I would ask if you could concur to the bill.
Member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I don't believe I spoke when this bill was going through before, but I feel the need to speak now because I am very disappointed in this bill and what happened in the Senate, notwithstanding that the project that Representative Hansen just spoke to, I'm sure, is a very good project. There are a lot of very worthy projects around the state that have not been funded, and we've had that discussion before. But I want to specifically address this Economic Development Fund, which now comes back to us even smaller than it went out. And this is the fund that is supposed to take care of economic development all around the state. And yet it's small and getting smaller. And some of us from communities like mine, where we have a convention center called a civic center, but it's really a convention center project, that the community, the business community, and the citizens of Rochester very much want and very much are depending on for the continued growth not only of our community but for the whole region and for the state, because this is a project that would bring in a lot of out-of-state money and business that we're not currently able to capture, because the conventions that would come to Rochester often are passing us by because we don't have a facility that can handle them, even though they would otherwise come to our community, where there are a lot of interactions with Mayo Clinic, with IBM, a lot of scientific and medical conventions could be coming to Minnesota that are not, because we don't have this facility. And now it comes back to us with this fund that has the potential to fund that facility, and I know there will be, as was discussed when this bill went through, there'll be a lot of fierce competition for these funds, which is very unfortunate, because if we really care about the economy in this state, we should be funding not only the one in my community, but some of yours as well. And now we've turned this into a block grant, and we've basically taken away the authority of the legislature to make these decisions and put it on to the executive branch, where everybody can now go and lobby the executive branch and fight over these few and fewer now funds than when the bill went out of here. And so this is very disappointing to me, members. I voted for the bill on the way out. There are some good things in this bill. Certainly it's better to have some money into our economy to get people to work than not. I'm glad that this is a bill that's almost $500 million instead of what it started out here. And so I'm very grateful for that, and there's a little bit of other things for my community. So, you know, like all omnibus bills, this one is a mix, but I just want to express my disappointment, and particularly my disappointment with the Senate and with our colleagues in the Senate, because this is something that our community should have been able to achieve this year, and yet we were not. And we started on this project back in 2006. This project has received planning money, and it even made it through the process all the way in 2010 and then was vetoed by Governor Pawlenty. So I just want to let you all know that, and I'm going to be supporting the bill. But I wish we were not concurring with this today. I think we could have done better. We should have done better. And I don't think we should be proud of this bill. This bill is it should be kind of the least we can do. That's how I see this bill, the least that we could do this year. Thank you.
The member from Scott, Representative Beard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Chair Howes. Speaking to the concurrence, I intend to vote for the concurrence. But members, I just want to speak into the record my interest in one portion of the bill regarding local roads. We put $10 million into that fund this year. I wish it was more. The Transportation Committee, I think, had a recommendation for $30 million. And we did that on purpose, members. And I just want to make it into the record that one of the things we do with that is we look for communities that need assistance for regional projects or projects of regional assistance significance. One of those would be On the East Metro, with the passage or the construction of the Stillwater Bridge, a couple communities there need some help with extraordinary expenses because the infrastructure is going to have to be upgraded to handle the river crossing, which has been coming for 30-some years, maybe 40 years now. In the Southwest Metro, in the area that I'm privileged to represent, some of that money was to be earmarked or expended on assistance to Scott and Carver counties as they raise the causeway across the Minnesota River Valley. Every time it goes underwater, more than 25,000 cars a day are inconvenienced and having to drive 18 to 20 miles around because that road is out of the water. When that road is raised 9 feet, it never goes underwater again. And that's something I think that rises to the need, that meets the needs test of the local road assistance program. Come down this weekend and check us out. You might see another flood event with the rainfall and the stuff that is coming down the river from Representative Morrow's district. We'll be happy to host it here probably on Sunday and Monday. So, members, I just wanted to speak into the record that that's what that's for. We know it's not enough this year. If I'm privileged to be sent back here again next year, we'll be putting more money into the account. Thank you, Chair Howes, for a good bill.
Member from Carver, Representative Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Liebling, I just wanted to address some of your comments, and I know that you didn't get everything you wanted in this bill, but I would just like the members to know that I happen to visit Rochester anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 times a year, and I know it's not a convention, and I know it's not thousands of conventioneers, but as soon as this coming Friday, I'm going to be going to Rochester for a weekend at the National Volleyball Center that has a beautiful addition on it that I believe just opened last year, and we go there for youth baseball, soccer, but particularly for volleyball, and it is an extremely nice facility, and I don't think that, Representative Liebling, you should discount those people. They might not be conventioneers and the kind of thing you're looking for, but I just did want to call attention to members to the fact that a lot of people, thousands of people, come from around Minnesota and from surrounding states and visit the beautiful city of Rochester, as I'm probably going to be doing this weekend.
Member from Dakota, Representative McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I just wanted to touch on and hope that folks will vote for the motion to concur. This is a terrific bill in a number of respects. Some of the environmental stuff, the flood mitigation, real important up in the Red River Valley and those areas. And some of this less glamorous stuff we don't always talk about. There's some real good money for dam repair. I believe the dam is on Lake Billsby. It's in Representative Garofalo's district, but most importantly, it protects the community of Cannon Falls in Representative Kelly's district. I believe that's the highest priority on the dam list. And another one is the reforestation in Representative Hilty's district. Unfortunately, we had some real bad blowdown at St. Croix State Forest, and there's some significant reforestation in the bill that will help that area. And then, members, there's $4 million for trail and park rehabilitation, and that's the less glamorous stuff we do, taking care of the trails, resurfacing them, milling them, and that's across the state in a number of the state parks. And then there's some additional money up in Representative Dill's district at Lake Vermilion State Park to put some trails in there on that land that we bought a few years ago. And then in Representative Drazkowski, Representative Quam's area, we're beginning to do some of the work on Lake Zumbro after they've fixed the upriver stream work so that we can make sense to make that a better use and a better recreation area. So members, I sure would like your support on the motion to concur. Thank you.
Member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members. I too support the motion to concur. Urge you to vote for it. The point that I would like to raise today is I'm grateful that $44 million for the capital restoration was included in this bill, but also urge those who return to this body next year to continue this commitment that has been made to the Capitol. We've begun the restoration. There are other stages and more money that need to be appropriated in the future, and urge you to remember that when you come back.
Member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just wanted to respond to Representative Hoppe. Representative Hoppe, thank you for the shout out for the National Volleyball Center. And I just want to say this was a project of the Amateur Athletic Association, not really a Rochester project, but it's a wonderful thing. And it took many, many years to get that done. And I just wanted to rise and say that this is a project, Representative Hoppe, I think, indicated quite correctly that this is a really good other economic development project. But, you know, it does bring dollars in. And when this was passed, I have to say that your side ridiculed the project. It was frivolous. It was, you know, we actually, the DFLers who, I believe it was Representative Norton's bill, we all took a lot of heat for that. So thank you for mentioning how well it's doing, how successful it really is. And, but I just did want to note that we are the third largest city in the state. And so if we get a few of our dollars back, you know, every once in a while, that's something that I think we have the right to expect.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Wagenius.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, am going to vote for this bill, but as we chat with the public about the environmental provisions in this bill, I think we have to be straightforward and tell them that this is a tiny amount of money for parks and trails. Tiny. If we were to spend all of the $4 million on trails, which I think we all understand Minnesotans really like, they really want us to expand our trail system, it would take us at this rate until 2097 to complete the trail system that we have on the books right now. We're nowhere near putting enough money into the trail system to do for Minnesotans what they've asked us to do. Secondly, we can't forget that this bonding bill has no money for a carp barrier for the Mississippi River. I know, Representative McNamara, you and I share the desire to get that job done. We're seeing carp coming up at the mouth of the St. Croix, and it's time to put that barrier in, and I am extraordinarily disappointed that we're going to wait another year and let the carp move another year's worth before we can move.
The member from Rice, Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I, too, want to thank Representative Hausman and Representative Howes for putting the South Central College back into the capital investment bill. The South Central expansion and renovation project in Faribault, Minnesota is going to finally be complete after 50 years. This will give a whole generation of students jobs that will fix and build your homes, your stadiums, your roads, and teach them new technology. Thank you for all of the students from my district. Thank you very much.
Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendment on House File 1752 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 1752 as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by Senate. Discussion. The member from Scott, Representative Biskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Let's start with a hypothetical. Let's say that you've lost your job, your bills are piling up, you're struggling to make it economically, but you find in your wallet a credit card that still has $100 left in the balance. Question, folks, is it fiscally responsible to go out and max out that credit card? Pretty simple. I think most logical, fiscally responsible people would say no. That is not responsible. Members, I've harped on here before, we have a lot of bonding authority that we have given the agencies that have not yet been let. Now, I know my senior colleague, member from Hennepin, has said, well, you staged that. And I get that. I seriously do. But in a time of crisis, when people are out of work and out of jobs, and this is supposed to be a jobs provision, don't you think the agencies would want to stage that just a little quicker? But they don't. They don't. Instead, we come here with $500 million in more debt. We have a party on this side of the aisle that ran and said that the debt we are putting on the backs of the people of this state is crushing. Federal government debt, state government debt, local government debt, school district debt. It adds up, and it's crushing. It's crushing. Now, members, both sides of the aisle, I know you get these little deals from your caucus. They're called briefing sheets. Members on this side of the aisle, just take a look at this briefing sheet and look at the names on both sides of the ledger when this bill went out of this body. And ask yourself, what's wrong with this picture and who's really in charge? Please vote no.
Member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, members, Representative Biskins was correct. We've got $6.3 billion of general obligation debt in this state, and we're going to add on a pile more after we added on $500 million last session. The debt service is projected now to be at $1.2 billion per biennium. Last time I checked, that was a 47% increase biennium to biennium. The fastest growing portion of the general fund is the money to pay back this debt. And we're putting more debt on top of the pile yet. If Minnesotans only knew what this was. We say bonding, we say capital investment, all kinds of things to create this mystification about what this is. This is borrowing more money on the backs of future taxpayers. Now there's projects in here. We had the $50 million. Now I understand it's at 47.5 or something for deed grants. Not for needs. This bonding bill is supposed to be about what Minnesota needs broadly throughout the state in infrastructure development and repair, to build our roads and bridges, to fix water and sewer, to mitigate floods. Those are the things our state needs. But we've got a pile under deed here, $47.5 million. Not only is it not an expressed need, it likely represents some expressed wants, but guess what? The wants haven't even been expressed yet. And for some, Representative Liebling and others that had projects that are definitely wants in here, not needs, it's serving as a little bundle of hope in order to bring your votes with you on this, what I would call the ugliest process here at the Capitol, the formation of this big boatload of bonding projects, borrowing and spending projects that is carried out in order to bring the necessary votes in order to make this thing pass. We've got a variety of parks and trail projects in here. Representative McNamara talked about a project that was even bordering my district that was put in the Senate, that I've got a bill and have had for each of the last two biennia to author to fund that project through the legacy area. It doesn't belong in this bill. The other natural resource projects that fit into the legacy criteria do not belong in this bill. The parks and trails projects in here do not belong in this bill. We need to use the legacy dollars for this, but no, the appetite for wants is greater than what fiscal responsibility provides. Members, it's too bad for Minnesotans that this bill is about to pass. I'd encourage you to vote no.
Further discussion, the member from Freeborn, Representative Murray.
Mr. Speaker, members, I'm going to agree with Representative Driscowski here. Lake Zumbro doesn't need that money, but I know of a lake 75 miles away in Freeborn County that could use some restoration and dredging, so if he wants to get rid of that project, we'd be happy to have it in Freeborn County. There's a lot of good things in this bill, and there's some things I don't like, and I like this bill much better before it went over to the Senate than when it came back. It should have came back in the same shape. I believe that we've done a good job here of taking care of some roads and bridges. As Representative Beard talked here, we should have done more there. The one project that I'm really happy that's in this bill is the Hormel project. That's the one project in this bill that creates jobs, both building something and jobs long term. And that's important. That's important for our state. That's what we should have been working on all along here. This is one project that's going to make that happen. So I'm going to end up supporting this bill as it goes out here today. But I think we need to really take a good hard look as we go forward with this and make sure that we continue to work on job creation and infrastructure improvements, and where they're needed, not where they're wanted. Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, clerk will take the roll. Clerk will close the roll. There being 97 ayes and 33 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate, and its title is agreed to. Calling the member from Washington, the Majority Leader, Representative Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I'm going to move a recess to the call of the chair until 9 p.m. And what we're going to do is just have a skeleton crew kind of come back to set the time when we're going to come back again. The reason for that is the Senate is doing their work down the hall, and we need to have a little better understanding of where they are before we set our time. So that's the purpose for that. And I've spoken to the Democrat leadership about that, so if they're in contact with you, the purpose will be to come back and set a time that we will be better educated on at that time. So unless your leadership chats with you, you'd be free to take off at this time. But Mr. Speaker, I move a recess to call the chair until 9 p.m.
Discussion. The Representative Dean's moved to recess to the call of the chair at approximately 9 p.m. All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. The motion prevails. The House stands in recess till approximately 9 p.m.